You've been told love is about connection, right? That it's something pure, a deep emotional bond that binds two souls together. But what if that's all a lie? What if love isn't about connection at all? What if love is about control? Schopenhauer saw this truth long before modern psychology had a name for it. He understood that women, more than men, are driven by a relentless, instinctual need to secure their place in the world. And that need? It doesn't revolve around emotional intimacy. It revolves around power. Power to manipulate. Power to secure their survival. We're taught to believe that love is a mutual exchange, something built on affection and understanding. But what if that's just a carefully constructed illusion? What if love, as we know it, is nothing more than a tool, something wielded to fulfill a deeper, far more primal drive? Schopenhauer was clear. The human will, the force that drives us all, is not about virtue. It's about survival. And when it comes to women, their survival, whether emotionally, physically, or socially, is calculated in ways we're often too blind to see. Schopenhauer understood that human behavior is largely governed by instinct, not reason. We don't act purely out of choice. We act out of the dictates of nature. We may like to think of ourselves as rational creatures, but our instincts, the primal drives that have shaped us for millennia, are the ones really in control. And in the case of women, those instincts are finely tuned for survival, for comfort, and for the perpetuation of their lineage. Every word they speak, every glance they cast, every subtle gesture, they're all calculated to maximize their position in life. You might be thinking, but isn't love about affection? Isn't it about connection, mutual respect, and understanding? And yes, at first glance, that's what it looks like. Men believe that when they offer affection, stability, and commitment, they're offering something that will be reciprocated with love and appreciation. They think their loyalty, their protection, their resources will be met with gratitude. But Schopenhauer would argue that what you're really offering is not affection. What you're offering is yourself as a tool. You're a means to an end. And that end? It's not a happy, mutually supportive relationship. It's survival. It's security. It's the ability to thrive. In relationships, men often think they're the ones giving, the ones who offer their attention, their time, their emotional energy. But Schopenhauer reveals something more uncomfortable. Women don't need these things because they love. They need these things because they understand their value. Their survival, both in a physical and social sense, depends on it. The stability, the protection, the resources that men offer are seen as tools that elevate their position in the world, tools that are necessary for their survival. When they accept affection from a man, they don't do it out of a pure desire for intimacy. They do it because it secures them. It gives them what they need. But there's a deeper level to this. Schopenhauer wasn't suggesting that women were malicious or intentionally manipulative. What he understood, what we fail to see, is that these actions are instinctual. Women don't need to plan and scheme. They don't need to consciously strategize. Their instincts do all the work for them. Nature has crafted them this way. The power they wield is not a conscious effort. It's instinctive, built into their very biology. And once you understand this, once you see it for what it truly is, the whole framework of relationships starts to shift. Think about the roles men and women play in the world today. Men are encouraged to chase, to provide, to protect. Women, by contrast, are encouraged to receive, to nurture, and to maintain. Men are told that they must give and give, whether it's emotional, physical, or financial. Women are taught that they deserve the best and should expect nothing less. But underneath all the social conditioning, the truth is far more uncomfortable. Men give not because they're offering love, but because they're filling a need. And women take not because they're loving, but because they're securing their future. So the next time you think you're being chosen for who you are, for your heart, or your honesty, or your charm, think again. Schopenhauer would argue that you're not being chosen for your personality. You're being chosen for what you provide. Whether it's status, security, or emotional protection, the truth is that you're a tool in a woman's strategy. And as long as you're offering something valuable, you'll continue to play your part in the game. This isn't to say that men and women are inherently deceitful or malicious. It's simply a reality that most of us don't like to face. The truth is, we are all playing a game. And the game isn't about connection or love. It's about power. Women are driven by an instinct to survive, and men are too often blind to the power they're giving away. Here's the unsettling thought that Schopenhauer would leave us with. The moment you stop being useful, the illusion of love begins to fade. When the power shifts, when the value is no longer there, the affection, the connection, the love, they all slip away. Not because you failed, not because you weren't good enough, but because your utility expired. And nature? Nature doesn't care about love. It cares about survival. So ask yourself, are you truly being loved? Or are you simply being used? What if the romance you think you're building, the love you believe is blossoming between you and her, is nothing more than a carefully calculated transaction? What if every date, every gesture, every moment you give isn't seen as an expression of love, but as a payment for access? What if your affection, your sacrifice, isn't cherished, but rather it's merely a price you pay for entry into her world? Schopenhauer understood something that most men still fail to recognize today: that love, as we've been conditioned to think of it, is often just an illusion. Men have been sold a narrative that says relationships are built on mutual affection, respect, and emotional connection. But Schopenhauer would argue that what you've been taught is simply a facade, a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep you giving, sacrificing, and pouring your energy into something that may never truly love you back. Let's look at this critically. What if women don't need your love the way you think they do? What if what they truly need, what they instinctively seek, are things far more tangible than your affection? Stability, status, protection. These are the commodities women crave, whether they admit it or not. These are the things that offer them safety, security, and the power to navigate a world that constantly challenges their position. And you, as a man, are offering them precisely that. You may think you're offering your heart, your devotion, your commitment. But the truth? You're offering something far more valuable in their eyes: your stability, your position in society, your ability to provide. The moment you can no longer offer these things, the connection starts to fade. The affection begins to slip away. The bond you thought was growing weakens, and suddenly you're left wondering what went wrong. You were once seen as a provider, a protector, someone with value. But when that value decreases, whether through failure, loss, or simply growing tired, the illusion begins to crack. The truth, stark and brutal, is that relationships in their rawest form are not about love at all. They're about power. and power is measured by what you can offer. This isn't to say that love doesn't exist, but it exists only for as long as you have something to offer. The moment the balance shifts, when your status declines, when your financial situation changes, when you fail to protect her or provide the resources she desires, the connection falters. This isn't about malicious intent. It's about survival. Schopenhauer knew that women, more than men, are shaped by an instinctual drive to secure their place in the world. Love isn't the currency they're after. It's the ability to secure their future. Think about the many men who fall in and out of relationships, pouring themselves into women who seem to love them in return. They're told to open up, to give of themselves emotionally. But all the while, they're building something that may not be as solid as they think. They're told that their vulnerability, their honesty, their devotion will be met with reciprocation. But what they don't realize is that their love is only valuable as long as it serves her purpose. The moment it no longer serves her, it's discarded. Not with malice, but with cold practicality. The moment you stop providing, the moment you stop fulfilling that role of stability, the romantic bond begins to erode. The illusion of love, once so strong, begins to fade, and you're left in the dark, wondering where it went wrong. What happened to the connection? What happened to the warmth, the affection? And the answer? It never was about love. It was about what you could offer. Your time, your energy, your resources, all the things that women, whether consciously or unconsciously, need to feel secure. Now let's talk about the nature of sacrifice in relationships. Men are taught that to love is to sacrifice, to give without expecting anything in return. But Schopenhauer would argue that this sacrifice, this giving, is not seen as love in the eyes of women. It's seen as payment. Payment for access. Access to the status and stability you provide. Women are conditioned, through instincts that have evolved over millennia, to view men as tools in the pursuit of their own survival. The more you give, the more you're expected to give. But the moment you stop paying the price, whether emotionally, financially, or physically, the connection starts to dry up. And here's the question. How many men realize they're paying that price in the first place? How many men understand that what they're offering isn't being seized as love, but as an investment? An investment in security. An investment in status. The man who cannot see this dynamic is the man who will continue to give and give, believing he's doing it out of love, while his partner, unknowingly or not, takes it as just another deposit in her safety net. You might feel angered by this, or you might feel a deep sense of betrayal. But this isn't a message to make you angry. This is a message to wake you up, because the man who understands that love can sometimes be a transaction, understands it deeply without bitterness, is the man who can control his own destiny. He's no longer blind. He no longer expects love in return for his sacrifices. He sees that power, not love, governs the dynamics of the relationship. And perhaps that's the uncomfortable truth you need to face. The romantic love you think you're building, the love you think is all about connection and affection, is in many ways a transaction. It's not about who you are, but what you can provide. It's about what you give, not who you are. And the moment you stop paying the price, whether consciously or not, the illusion of love will start to fade. Is that what love really is? Or is it something deeper, something harder to face? In the marketplace of relationships, men have been taught to provide. From an early age, we're conditioned to believe that the key to attracting love, respect, and admiration is to give. Give our time, our attention, our resources. But what if that giving isn't the path to fulfillment? What if it's just another form of slavery? A game designed not to elevate you, but to drain your worth, leaving you with nothing but the illusion of love. Schopenhauer saw this before social media culture turned love into an online transaction, before dating apps made relationships feel like a business exchange. He understood that the true currency in relationships isn't just time or attention. It's far more valuable than that. It's the man's emotional, mental, and financial energy. This is what women are really after. Not the man himself, not his heart, but what he can offer, what he can provide. And the moment he stops offering these things, when he fails to meet the unspoken expectations of value, the illusion of love disappears. Men are led to believe that their worth is in their being, in their personality, in their presence. But in reality, the measure of a man's value is defined by what he gives. Women don't fall in love with men because of who they are. They fall in love with what they provide. Whether it's financial security, emotional support, or social status, these are the commodities women crave. And it's not that they're evil or malicious. It's that, instinctually, they've been wired for survival. Love, in this sense, is a transaction. It's a game. And if the man stops playing, the game ends. Think about the countless relationships you've seen or experienced. Men pouring themselves into women, trying to be everything they think their partner wants. They give their time, their focus, their energy. They sacrifice their dreams, their freedom, their autonomy, believing it's all for the greater good of the relationship. But what happens when those sacrifices aren't reciprocated? What happens when a man, tired and drained, stops providing? The affection, the intimacy, the love that once seemed so real starts to fade. It's not because the woman has stopped loving him. It's because she's stopped valuing what he provides. And when the currency runs dry, the relationship is no longer worth the effort. The truth is, women, like all humans, seek security. But their security is different. They don't seek emotional connection first. They seek stability, status, and protection. A man may believe he's offering his love, his soul, his devotion, but what he's really offering is access to his resources, his time, his attention, his ability to elevate her status. And Schopenhauer would argue that it's not just that women need these things, it's that they're biologically wired to prioritize them. The emotional connection, the love, is just the hook. The real investment is in what a man can provide, and as soon as that supply starts to wane, so does the connection. This isn't just true in romantic relationships. It extends across every interaction between men and women. Whether it's in friendships, family, or even the workplace, the same dynamics apply. Men are expected to give, to offer value, to pour themselves out for others. Women, on the other hand, are more often in the position of receiving, whether consciously or not. This dynamic is often invisible, overlooked, and entirely unspoken, and it leaves men feeling drained, confused, and wondering what went wrong. But let's be clear here. It's not a malicious act. It's biology. It's nature. Schopenhauer's philosophy was not about condemning one sex or elevating the other. It was about stripping away the illusions we've built around relationships. In this case, the illusion that love is based purely on emotional connection. It's not. At its core, love is about utility, about what is exchanged. The moment a man stops being useful, the love evaporates. It's a simple transaction. The relationship was never about affection or true connection. It was about value, the value he provided. Ask yourself, how many men have been in relationships where they gave, and gave, emotionally, financially, mentally, and yet found themselves alone when they had nothing more to give? How many men have been drained of their vitality, their identity, their worth, all for the promise of love, only to be left in the dust once the supply ran out? It's not an anomaly. It's the system. It's the way relationships are built, whether we like it or not. Now think about this. What happens when you realize that the love you think you've been building is nothing more than a transaction? What happens when you understand that your worth in the eyes of others is defined by your ability to provide, to offer something tangible? Does that change the way you look at relationships? Does it make you want to withhold, to protect your resources, to stop giving so freely? Schopenhauer wasn't offering comfort. He wasn't telling you to withdraw and shut off your emotions. He was offering clarity, a brutal, unapologetic clarity. The truth that relationships at their core are not about love. They're about what you can offer. And once you stop offering, once your supply runs dry, the illusion of love disappears. So here's the question that Schopenhauer would leave us with. Are you truly in a relationship based on love? Or are you just another provider in a world where what you offer is the true currency of connection? The answer to that may not be what you want to hear, but it's one you need to understand. Vulnerability is often praised as the path to true intimacy, the key to forging deep, unbreakable connections. It's a virtue in today's world, a marker of emotional maturity, and the doorway to real love. But what if I told you that showing your weaknesses isn't seen as a strength, but as a flaw? What if instead of drawing you closer, it's actually pushing you further away? Schopenhauer saw the danger in exposing yourself emotionally, and it's something most men still don't understand. For years, we've been conditioned to believe that emotional vulnerability will build the foundations of any meaningful relationship. Men are told to open up, to reveal their deepest fears, their doubts, their struggles. It's the idea that if you're honest and exposed, you'll create a stronger bond with your partner, one that's based on genuine connection. But Schopenhauer understood something critical that most men still miss. Vulnerability, far from being a path to connection, is actually the quickest route to losing your power in the relationship. Men, in all their sincerity, offer their vulnerabilities as a gift, thinking that emotional exposure will foster intimacy and trust. But what if women, driven by primal instincts, perceive this emotional exposure not as honesty, but as weakness? Schopenhauer would argue that women don't fall in love with men for their emotional openness. They fall in love with strength. Strength that isn't just physical, it's psychological, it's emotional. It's the ability to carry burdens, to protect, to lead. When a man exposes his weaknesses, he's not seen as brave. He's seen as fragile, as someone who can't bear the weight of the world. The vulnerability he shares isn't a gift, it's a liability. Think about it. When a man lays bare his emotional struggles, his fears, his sense of powerlessness, what does that truly offer? It doesn't offer a deeper connection. It offers a shift in dynamics. Women, whether they realize it or not, are instinctively searching for the man who can carry the weight of the world, not the one who crumbles beneath it. When a man reveals his pain, when he lets down his guard and exposes his weaknesses, he unconsciously tells his partner, "I need you." And in that moment, his power in the relationship begins to erode. But here's the twist. Women, by nature, do not want to feel like they need to carry their partner's emotional weight. They want security. They want strength. When a man shows his emotional wounds, he may think he's offering trust. But what he's actually doing is inviting his partner to question his ability to provide security. The moment he shows his fragility, he no longer feels like the protector. He becomes the protected. It's a difficult truth to swallow, but Schopenhauer saw it clearly. Vulnerability, emotional exposure, and openness are not inherently powerful traits in the eyes of the opposite sex. In fact, they can be quite the opposite. Strength, not fragility, is what draws respect and admiration. It's not about being closed off or emotionally unavailable. It's about maintaining your composure, about keeping control over your emotions and your actions. It's about presenting yourself as a steady, dependable force in your partner's life, not a source of emotional chaos. This isn't to say men shouldn't be emotionally available, but there's a fine line between showing vulnerability to connect and showing vulnerability to seek validation. When a man presents his weaknesses, his partner may feel sympathy, but she won't feel desire. She may care for him, but she won't look up to him. Vulnerability may generate empathy, but it will rarely generate the kind of attraction that leads to lasting love. Think about the countless men who have poured their hearts out, only to find that the more they share, the more the emotional connection slips away. They give and give, thinking they're building trust, only to watch their partner's affection fade. Why? Because vulnerability, when overdone, is not a strength. It's a sign of emotional instability. It shifts the balance of power. It's an unspoken invitation to the woman to take on the role of caretaker, protector, or emotional anchor. And no man wants to be in that position. What's even more unsettling is the fact that many men, in their pursuit of intimacy, don't even realize they're weakening themselves by exposing their vulnerabilities. They assume that being emotionally open is the key to love. But they're overlooking the fundamental truth that women, driven by evolution and biology, are looking for something entirely different. They're not looking for a man to lean on emotionally. They're looking for a man who can carry them both. The tragedy here is that most men don't learn this lesson until it's too late. They open up, they share, they expose their fears and insecurities, only to realize that, in doing so, they've relinquished their power. They've become the one who needs support, the one who requires comfort. And as much as women may offer sympathy, it's not sympathy they seek. It's respect, it's admiration, it's security. Schopenhauer would argue that the key to real power in a relationship is not in the emotional openness, but in emotional control. A man who can maintain his strength while still being emotionally intelligent, while still being capable of connection, is the one who commands respect. Emotional exposure may seem like the path to intimacy, but Schopenhauer would challenge that notion. The path to real connection is not through emotional weakness, but through emotional mastery. So here's the question that you need to answer for yourself. Are you truly being vulnerable, or are you simply weakening yourself? Because the moment you reveal your vulnerabilities, the moment you expose your fragility, you may find that the connection you thought you were building starts to crumble. The power you thought you had in the relationship slips away, and you're left wondering why your partner no longer sees you the same way. The question is simple. What do you really want? To be loved for your strength, or to be pitied for your fragility? You believe she loves you for who you are. You believe she cherishes your heart your soul, your essence. But what if that affection is merely a strategy? What if love isn't love at all, but a subtle power play, a tool she uses to secure her position in this world? What if everything you think is affection is, in reality, a calculated move to keep you in her orbit? Schopenhauer saw this truth long before we started romanticizing the notion of love. And the truth is, as uncomfortable as it is undeniable, the affection women offer men is rarely about deep, selfless love. It's about what you can provide. We've all been conditioned to believe that love is a pure emotion, something that transcends the mundane and the practical, that it's a connection that draws two people together, a bond built on mutual affection and understanding. But Schopenhauer understood the darker reality behind relationships. He understood that what we call love is often a strategy, a tactical decision made to ensure survival, comfort, and status. Women, more than men, are biologically wired to seek protection and elevate their standing in society. The affection they offer men is not a reflection of pure, unadulterated love. It is a tool, a means to an end. Take a moment to think about the dynamics of your own relationships. Have you ever noticed that when you're providing, when you're at your best, offering your stability, your protection, your resources, she's affectionate, warm, and caring? But what happens when you start to falter? What happens when your usefulness begins to diminish? When you're no longer offering the things she needs to feel secure, to feel elevated? The affection fades, and you're left in the cold, wondering why everything changed. You thought love was unconditional. You thought that bond couldn't break. But in reality, it was never about love at all. It was about what you prohibited. Schopenhauer would argue that this is not some cruel manipulation. It's simply the way nature has wired us. Women, in particular, are designed to seek out the strongest, most capable partner, the one who can offer the greatest protection, the most stability, the highest social standing. The affection they show isn't the love you think it is. It's an instinctual mechanism that keeps them tethered to someone who can ensure their survival. Your worth to her is measured not by your heart, but by your utility. It's a truth that stings, but it's one that every man must confront. The moment a man stops being useful, when his emotional, financial, or social standing begins to wane, the affection he once received begins to dry up. And it's not a sign that the relationship is ending. It's a sign that he's stopped offering the value she needs. The illusion of love fades. The affection evaporates, and the man is left to grapple with the reality that he was never loved for who he was, but for what he could offer. Think about the men who spend years in relationships, thinking they're building something real, something lasting. They pour their time, their attention, their love into a woman who, at first, seems to reciprocate. They believe they are loved for their heart, for their character, for their loyalty. But Schopenhauer would suggest they're missing the point. The affection they receive is not a gift, it's a transaction. And when that transaction no longer holds value, the affection slips away. But this isn't just a critique of women. It's a critique of all of us. Our blind belief in the idealized version of love we've been sold. Schopenhauer's philosophy isn't about placing blame. It's about stripping away the layers of illusion. Love, as we understand it, isn't this transcendent, selfless force. It's often a power struggle, a negotiation of worth and utility. And when you're no longer seen as useful, the relationship shifts. What was once affection is now calculated indifference. What was once warmth becomes a distant, polite formality. This isn't a message to make you bitter, but to make you aware. Because the man who understands this truth, who sees through the mask of affection, gains something far more valuable than fleeting love. He gains clarity. He understands the game he's playing. And once you see that the affection you're receiving is often based on your utility, you can stop chasing what isn't real. You can stop offering what isn't appreciated. And you can start playing by your own rules. But here's the hardest question to ask yourself. Are you truly loved for who you are? Or are you being used for what you can provide? Because the moment you stop offering what's needed, the illusion will disappear. And once you recognize that, you'll see that the dynamics of every relationship around you are not driven by love, but by power, by what's being exchanged, by what is being provided. This isn't a bitter reality. It's a liberating one. It allows you to step out of the cycle of giving without receiving. It opens your eyes to the truth that love, in its purest sense, isn't about affection or devotion. It's about value. And until you understand that, you'll keep chasing affection that's tied to what you offer, not who you are. So next time you find yourself questioning the affection you're receiving, ask yourself, what is she really after? Is it your love, or is it what you can provide? You've been taught to believe that men and women are equal, that love is about harmony, about two people coming together to share their lives as equals. But what if that's all an illusion? What if relationships aren't about partnership at all, but about competition? What if the so-called equality we cherish in modern relationships is nothing more than a facade designed to blind you to the deeper power dynamics at play? Schopenhauer, long before modern psychology and social media made relationships feel like a cooperative exchange, saw the darker truth about love. He understood something that few men even begin to comprehend. Relationships are not about equality. They're about survival. And the truth: men and women are not equal partners. They never have been. Women, Schopenhauer argued, are in a constant competition for survival and status. And men? Men are the tools in that game. We've been conditioned to believe in the idea of fairness, of mutual sacrifice, of a relationship where both sides give and take in equal measure. But Schopenhauer would reject that notion with brutal clarity. He saw that men are expected to give everything: time, attention, stability, while receiving little in return. They pour their energy, their resources, their hearts into relationships, believing they're building something lasting. But what they're really building is a trap, where one side always has the upper hand. And that side? It's not them. Consider this. How many men are expected to provide emotional support, financial security, and social status? How often are men asked to give up their time, their focus, their sense of self, in order to make their partner happy, secure, or satisfied? But what does the man get in return? A few fleeting moments of affection, some praise, maybe a false promise of love. Women, on the other hand, are constantly measuring the worth of their partners, not based on affection, but based on what they can offer. Stability, status, protection. These are the currencies women deal in, and they understand them better than most men realize. Schopenhauer wasn't suggesting that women are evil, manipulative, or malicious. He was simply pointing out the facts of human nature. Women, driven by their instincts, are constantly playing the game of survival and status. They are biologically wired to seek out the strongest, the most capable partner, someone who can offer them protection and elevate their position in society. And men, for the most part, are simply the tools they use to achieve that. But what happens when a man stops providing? What happens when he no longer has the resources, the status, the protection to offer? The affection, the love, the connection, it begins to fade. And this isn't a sign that the relationship is falling apart. No, it's a sign that the man has stopped being useful. He has stopped offering the necessary resources to maintain the relationship. The affection is no longer earned. It has been withdrawn. The man has failed in his role. This, in Schopenhauer's view, is not an anomaly. It's the system at work. The idea of equality between the sexes? It's a myth. The truth is that relationships, at their core, are a constant power struggle. There is always one side with the upper hand, and it's rarely the man. A woman may present herself as your equal, but beneath the surface, she is assessing your worth. What do you bring to the table? What can you provide for her survival, her status, her security? If you fail to provide, the dynamic shifts. You become the one who must prove your worth. You become the one who must beg for affection, for attention, for validation. Look at the relationships around you. How many men are constantly giving, constantly providing, while women seem to take without hesitation? Men offer their time, their resources, their love, but too often, what they get in return is either minimal or superficial. The truth is simple. Men are expected to provide, and the moment they stop providing, the relationship loses its spark. Women may seem to offer affection, but Schopenhauer understood that this affection is often contingent on one thing: how useful the man remains. The moment a man becomes less useful, the affection fades, and the relationship begins to unravel. But here's the most uncomfortable question. Are you truly equal in your relationship, or are you just a pawn in her game? Are you giving everything, expecting love in return, when in reality, what you're offering is simply a means to her end? The harsh truth is that many men live in a fantasy of equality, thinking their sacrifice will be reciprocated with love. But in reality, love is just the mask. The true currency is what you can provide. Schopenhauer's message is a wake-up call. It's not about blaming women or casting them as manipulative forces. It's about seeing the world as it is. It's about understanding that relationships, no matter how we dress them up, are power struggles. And until you see this, until you understand that your worth is defined not by love, but by utility, you'll keep playing a game that was rigged from the start. So, let's strip it down to the core. Do you really believe in equality? Or are you just living in a world where one side always has the upper hand? The answer to that question may not be comfortable, but it's the truth you need to face. You think she needs you. You think you're the one who's essential to her, the one she can't live without. But what if I told you that you're just another pawn in her game? What if the man who feels needed is actually the most manipulated? What if the very thing that makes you feel wanted is the trap that keeps you in her control? Schopenhauer's take on relationships was brutally honest. He didn't sugarcoat it. Women don't need men for affection. They need them for resources. Men have been led to believe that they're being chosen for their love, for their ability to offer emotional connection. But the truth, as Schopenhauer saw it, is far darker. Men are being used for their attention, their status, their ability to provide. And the moment a man feels needed, he's already been ensnared. Because in a woman's world, need isn't love, it's leverage. Take a step back and think about it. How many men have felt that rush of validation when a woman says, "I need you," or when she leans on him emotionally? How many men have felt a sense of pride when their partner relies on them, when they believe they're the cornerstone of her happiness? It feels like love. It feels like purpose. It feels like connection. But Schopenhauer would argue that this isn't love at all. It's a carefully constructed illusion. The need a woman expresses is not about affection. It's about control. You've been conditioned to believe that dependency in a relationship is a sign of intimacy, that the more she needs you, the more important you are. But here's the harsh reality. Women understand dependency better than you do. They know that dependency is a tool. When a woman makes a man feel needed, she doesn't just gain affection. She gains power. She gains control over him. Men, driven by their desire to feel loved and validated, often mistake dependency for affection. But dependency is leverage, and the moment a man feels indispensable, he's already been trapped. Think about the dynamics of every relationship you've ever seen or been part of. How often does a man bend over backwards to fulfill the needs of the woman in his life, emotionally, financially, physically, only to find himself empty, exhausted, and questioning why the connection isn't as deep as he thought? The answer lies in the subtle manipulation at play. When a woman says she needs a man, she's not expressing love. She's creating a dependency. She's not giving him something in return. She's securing her position. She's ensuring that the man continues to provide, continues to offer his attention, his status, his resources, with the illusion of reciprocity. Schopenhauer saw this clearly. Men offer everything, believing they are needed for who they are, when in reality, they're just another resource in a woman's strategy. The moment the man stops being useful, whether through failure, exhaustion, or simply a shift in priorities, the need fades. The affection disappears, and the man is left wondering what went wrong. He thought his value was tied to his love, but it was actually tied to what he could provide. In a world where power dynamics rule every interaction, affection becomes a tool for control. But here's the real tragedy. Most men never even see this happening. They think their value is based on their identity, on their emotional connection, on the love they offer. But Schopenhauer would argue that their value is being evaluated based on their ability to provide. The moment a man stops providing, the need disappears. It wasn't love to begin with. It was just a transaction. Now let's make this personal. Think about your own relationships, whether romantic, familial, or platonic. How often have you been the one who gives, emotionally, financially, mentally, without ever being asked to? How often have you felt that sense of satisfaction in providing, in being the one she turns to? How often has your worth been tied to your ability to fulfill her needs? The hard truth is that men are conditioned to feel pride in being needed because they believe it equates to love. But that need is not an expression of love. It's an emotional exchange designed to keep the man invested, to keep him in a cycle of giving without receiving. Schopenhauer wasn't bitter or resentful. He wasn't casting women as manipulative or cruel. He was simply stripping away the illusions. The illusion of love, the illusion of equality, the illusion that dependency means affection. And the most uncomfortable truth of all, the man who feels needed is the one who is being used. Dependency isn't a sign of love, it's leverage. And until men understand this, they will continue to play the role they've been cast in, offering more and more while receiving less and less. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Are you truly needed, or are you being used? The truth is this. Dependency is a powerful tool, and the moment you believe you're indispensable, the moment you fall into the trap of being needed, you've already lost control. If you truly want to understand relationships, understand this. The man who feels needed isn't the one with the upper hand. He's the one who's being manipulated. So, ask yourself, do you want to be loved for who you are? Or do you want to be the one who is used for what you provide? She doesn't need to tell you what to do. She doesn't need to ask for your attention. She doesn't even need to make it obvious. But somehow, she always gets what she wants. How? You've probably never noticed it, but it's happening right under your nose. The quiet, subtle manipulation that most men don't even recognize. Because it's not loud, it's not forceful, and it's certainly not something anyone would admit to. But Schopenhauer saw it, and he understood it in a way that few men do. Manipulation, he argued, doesn't have to be overt to be powerful. It doesn't have to be explicit. It can be quiet, instinctive, and subtle. And once you understand this, you'll realize that most men are not in control. They're responding to cues they don't even see coming. Schopenhauer understood the delicate balance of power in relationships, particularly the one between men and women. Men believe they are the ones making the decisions. They think they are the ones in control, leading the dance. But in reality, they're just reacting to a series of unconscious cues that have been set into motion by the woman in their life. A glance, a smile, a touch, a moment of vulnerability. All these small, seemingly insignificant actions can have a profound effect on a man's behavior and decisions. And the worst part? He doesn't even realize it's happening. This is where the true mastery of manipulation lies. Women, Schopenhauer argued, don't need to force or demand. They simply need to suggest. And that suggestion can be as simple as the way they look at you. It's in the way they speak, the way they move, the way they make you feel seen, heard, and desired. These subtle actions trigger a response in men, an instinctual response that makes them think they're in control, that they are the ones driving the relationship. But in reality, they are just playing out a script that was written for them. Take a mom, and to think about how many times you've acted based on a woman's subtle cues without even knowing why. You've probably felt the urge to do something, maybe to offer help, to buy a gift, to give your time, because of how she made you feel. She didn't ask, she didn't demand, but somehow she got you to act. How? Because women understand the dynamics of influence on a deeper level, and they don't need to be overt to get what they want. Schopenhauer would argue that women, driven by their instincts, are masters at using these subtle, instinctual cues to their advantage. They don't need to raise their voice or play manipulative games. They simply need to tap into the unconscious desires of men. Men, driven by their own biological urges, respond without ever questioning why they're responding. It's primal, it's natural, and it's incredibly effective. But here's the part that most men don't realize. When a man believes he's making the choices, when he believes he's in control, he's actually being led by invisible strings. Every decision, every action he takes, has been subtly influenced by a woman's cues, whether through body language, tone, or even the occasional moment of vulnerability. Women understand the power of creating a need, of creating a moment where the man feels compelled to act. And in those moments, the balance of power shifts. Imagine a scenario. she looks at you in a certain way. Maybe she's vulnerable for just a second. Maybe she gives you a compliment, a fleeting moment of affection. In that moment, she knows something you don't. That her vulnerability, her smile, her soft words will trigger a response in you that makes you feel important, needed, and wanted. You act, you give, you provide. All the while, you think it's because you want to. But the truth is, you were subtly influenced to act in the way she needed you to. You don't realize that the choice was never really yours. Schopenhauer's philosophy brings this uncomfortable truth to light. The man who believes he is the one in control is often the most manipulated, and that manipulation doesn't require aggression or force. It's in the subtlety. It's in the small, unnoticed things, the looks, the smiles, the quiet gestures that shape the man's actions and decisions. It's a manipulation so deft, so imperceptible, that the man doesn't even see it happening. The danger here is that many men spend their entire lives believing they are in control, thinking that they are the ones leading the relationship. But in reality, they are just pawns in a game they don't understand. They think they're giving because they want to, but in truth, they're giving because they've been subtly guided to do so. The woman doesn't need to force him. She just needs to create the environment where he feels compelled to act, to give, to provide. So here's the question that Schopenhauer would ask. Who's really in control? Is it the man who believes he's leading? Or is it the woman who understands how to use subtle cues to guide his actions? The power doesn't always lie in loud demands and overt manipulation. Sometimes, the most powerful manipulation is the one that's barely noticed, the one that's so subtle it feels like free will. Once you realize that manipulation doesn't always come with force, once you see how women can subtly influence a man's decisions, you can't unsee it. The question then becomes, what are you really responding to? Are you truly in control of your actions? Or are you simply being guided by a series of subtle cues that you don't even recognize? The choice is yours, but only if you can see the strings. You think you're the one who chooses who to pursue. You think you control attraction, that you decide where your attention goes, that you're the one who makes the first move. But what if you're not choosing at all? What if she's been in control the entire time, and you just didn't realize it? Schopenhauer understood the role of validation in human behavior better than most of us ever will. Men, believing they're the masters of their desires, are often drawn to women based on their external traits, their beauty, their charm, their presence. But what most men don't see, what they don't recognize, is that women have known this instinctive drive of men for centuries. Women don't need to chase. They don't need to beg for attention. They don't even need to show interest. All they need to do is exist, and a man's desire is activated. It's an uncomfortable truth, isn't it? That you, the one who believes himself to be the hunter, the pursuer, might actually be the prey. You think you're in control of your attraction, that you're making a conscious decision to pursue her. But in reality, the power of attraction has always been in her hands. She doesn't have to work hard for it. All she needs to do is be seen, and your desire, like a moth to a flame, is activated. You feel the urge to chase, to prove yourself, to win her approval. But what if all along, you've been the one chasing, and she's been the one leading you? Schopenhauer understood the dynamics of desire like few others. The power of validation, he argued, lies not in what is given, but in what is withheld. Men, driven by their instincts, often believe they are the ones in control of their own desires. But the reality is far more unsettling. The power to validate, to determine when and how desire is activated, rests not in the man, but in the woman. She controls the dynamic through what she withholds. Think about it. How many men have been left dangling, trying to win a woman's approval, working harder and harder to get her attention. They buy the gifts, send the texts, plan the dates, all in pursuit of her validation. But the moment she withholds it, the moment she steps back, the man's pursuit intensifies. Why? Because validation, Schopenhauer would argue, is not about what is given. It's about what is denied. The more she withholds, the more he wants. The more she plays hard to get, the more he chases. This subtle, instinctive dance is where the power lies. It's not about the affection she offers. It's about the affection she refuses to give. It's not about what she does, but about what she doesn't do. Schopenhauer understood that this withholding creates a power imbalance that most men are oblivious to. Men spend their time trying to win approval, trying to prove their worth, but they don't realize that they've already lost the moment they start chasing approval. It's a game they're set up to lose. But here's the truly unsettling part. How many men have fallen into this cycle and never even realized it? How many men spend years in relationships, pouring out their energy, their time, their resources, all in the name of love and approval, only to find that the moment they stop giving, the affection starts to fade? It's a cruel realization, isn't it? That what they thought was love wasn't about who they were. It was about what they provided. And once their usefulness ran out, once they stopped playing the game, the validation disappeared. And this isn't just about romantic relationships. It's about every interaction where validation is at play. At work, in friendships, even in family dynamics. Women, more than men, understand the currency of validation. They understand that withholding it is the most powerful form of control. They don't have to manipulate openly. They don't need to make demands or play games. They simply need to exist and decide when and where to offer validation. The more they withhold, the more the man craves. It's a primal cycle, one that keeps the man chasing for validation he may never receive, all while reinforcing her control over him. Think about your own experiences. How many times have you found yourself in the cycle of pursuit, chasing after someone's approval, constantly seeking validation, but never feeling like you get enough in return? How often do you give and give, thinking you're building a connection, only to realize that the validation you're seeking has been kept just out of reach? Schopenhauer's philosophy is a harsh mirror to hold up to our romantic and social lives. The truth is that most men are caught in this cycle, unaware of the power dynamics at play. They think they're the ones making the decisions, choosing who to pursue, when in reality, they are simply responding to cues they didn't even recognize as manipulation. The question then becomes, who is really in control of your desires? Is it you or is it her? The woman who withholds, who controls validation, who holds the power to activate or extinguish your desire. And more importantly, how much of your life are you willing to spend chasing approval that may never come? Schopenhauer would ask you to see the game for what it truly is. The validation you seek, the approval you crave, is not as freely given as you think. It's a tool of control, a subtle power play that shapes the dynamic between you and everyone you seek approval from. And until you realize this, you'll keep playing the game, unaware that the strings are being pulled, not by you, but by her. You think you're playing the game to win. You believe that love, affection, and commitment are the keys to a fulfilling relationship. You sacrifice, you give, you offer your time, your energy, and your resources, convinced that eventually you'll be rewarded. But what if the game is rigged? What if, no matter how much you give, no matter how much you sacrifice, the only way to win is to stop playing altogether? Schopenhauer's philosophy revealed a painful truth. Men are trapped in a cycle of sacrifice. They are constantly giving more and more, expecting love and affection in return, but never truly receiving enough. The deeper they go, the more they lose. And as they lose themselves in the process, the game continues, and they find themselves further and further entrenched in a system that doesn't serve them. Men are taught to chase after love, to believe that their worth is determined by what they give. They offer their time, their loyalty, their protection, all in the hopes of winning affection, winning love, winning validation. But the truth, Schopenhauer would argue, is that love isn't about giving, it's about leverage. And as men keep giving, as they continue sacrificing more and more of themselves, they lose the leverage they need to maintain control in the relationship. Women, on the other hand, understand this dynamic naturally. They know how to keep their options open, how to maintain their leverage, and how to play the game without losing themselves in the process. They don't give away too much too soon. They don't sacrifice themselves for the man's affection. Instead, they keep their power intact, knowing that love is not about emotional investment, but about ensuring that the balance of power remains in their favor. It's a hard truth, isn't it? The deeper a man goes into the relationship, the more he sacrifices, the more he gives, the further he is from winning. The woman, no matter how much affection she offers, is always holding back, always keeping something in reserve. She knows that if she gives too much, if she sacrifices too much, she loses the power to control the dynamic. She understands that she must keep the upper hand, no matter how much love or affection she seems to offer. Think about it. How many men have gone to great lengths to win the affection of a woman, spending money, giving up their time, dedicating themselves to making her happy, only to find themselves drained, tired, and emotionally spent, while she remains untouched, always keeping something back? How many men have thought that their sacrifice would be met with the kind of affection and commitment they've been offering, only to discover that the more they give, the less they receive? This isn't a critique of women. This is about understanding the rules of the game. Schopenhauer was clear. Men are trapped in a cycle of sacrifice, constantly giving more without ever receiving enough. Women know this instinctively. They understand that love, in its purest form, isn't a matter of affection. It's about maintaining control, about keeping the power dynamic in their favor. The man sacrifices everything: his time, his energy, his emotional and financial resources. And in the end, the woman continues to play the game, as she always has. Men believe they are winning the game by sacrificing more, by giving more of themselves. But Schopenhauer would argue that they're not playing to win. They're playing to lose. The more they give, the more they lose. The more they pour into the relationship, the less they have left to stand on. And the woman, who has held back just enough to maintain her leverage, remains in control. She has never given too much. She has never sacrificed her power. The problem is that most men are blind to this dynamic. They believe they're giving out of love. They think that the more they give, the more they will receive. But the reality is that their sacrifice is not seen as love. It's seen as a transaction, an investment that can be pulled away the moment it no longer serves her needs. The moment the man stops being useful, The moment the sacrifices no longer align with her needs, the affection fades, and what the man thought was love was simply the illusion of love, built on his own sacrifice. Here's the uncomfortable reality. The only way for a man to truly win in love is to stop playing the game, to stop sacrificing, to stop giving endlessly, hoping for a reward that will never come. The man who stops sacrificing, the man who understands that love is not about giving everything away, but about maintaining his power and his identity, is the man who wins. Not because he has the woman's affection, but because he has his own. So here's the question that Schopenhauer would leave us with. What are you willing to sacrifice, and at what cost? The game you think you're playing isn't the one you're actually in. The moment you realize that sacrifice doesn't equal love, the moment you stop playing the game of endless giving, you'll see the world for what it truly is. And you'll stop chasing something that was never meant for you.